What's up? What's up?
Hello.
Hello, Grace. We're back, folks. It's been 2 months, 3 months. I don't know.
3 months.
3 months. Well, if you're new here and you're tuning in for the very first time, welcome to the Azure Developer CLI or AZD Community Call. We host these once a month to talk about all the wonderful things happening in Azure Developer CLI. We haven't been here in a couple months. What have we been doing, Grace? We've been doing something, I think, just a little, like small thing, right?
Yeah, just you saw there was a new video there was a new intro to this community call. So that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Also we GA'd, which is the other big thing. But I think that intro video is a little fancier. That's important to point out.
I know the assets for these streams are getting even higher and higher fidelity. We have Haley on the back end here who's been kind of coordinating some of this. So shout out to the people that make this community call happen every month. But yeah, we GA'd. We released the first stable version of the Azure Developer CLI at Build, which is something our team's been working on. Very lots of hard work went into that over the last couple months. So we don't have like a party popper thing. I don't think that's one of the assets feature requests for the platform. But I feel like that was a pretty big deal and a really exciting moment for our team at Build. And also, if you tuned in, we were in a Scott Guthrie keynote showing off some of the ChatGPT plugin stuff. So spoilers, stay tuned for that later on this call. We have John on the call too to walk through that. But I guess without further ado, we can kick things off. And as always, questions, comments come up from folks in the chat. Drop them in here. We will answer them as they come up, and then we'll have some time at the end also to chat with folks if there are more questions. Cool. Let's get rolling. So, Grace, do you want to give us a little like heads up on what's coming, what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about, I think that this slide is not updated. I think that we are going straight into some of the demos that we're going to be talking about. Well, I guess also what's new. So we're going to show like the starter templates, talk a little bit about our feature staging strategy for AZD, and then also the resource group scope deployments. John, like you mentioned, is going to be on here talking about the ChatGPT plugin, and then we'll also talk about what's on our roadmap for the next, I think, just few months really, and there's already a lot on there. And then, of course, at the end, roundtable discussion, answering any questions folks have.
Yeah. Oh, and I also we did the intro of welcome to the Azure Developer CLI community call, but we didn't introduce ourselves, which is kind of rude. So yeah, I'm Savannah. I'm the product lead for the Azure Developer CLI, and
yeah, I'm Grace, and I am one of the why can't I think of my title? Product managers on the.
Grace and I work together on AZD. We're PMs. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, oh yeah, wow, I should have left it in this slide. I forgot we had this slide in here. These are all the wonderful people that work on our team. Program managers, product managers, engineers, user researcher, designer. We got everyone. We have a handful of these folks on the community call today, but you might see us on GitHub. Some of us are on Twitter for better or for worse. Talk to us there. Talk to us wherever you feel comfortable. Cool. Oh, okay. I think we're gonna bring our first friend on the line. Wei, you're back.
Hello. It's great to be back. It's been a while since I've done this, I think.
Yeah, I don't know when I think I was reviewing some of these the other day. I feel like you were on in January maybe or something. I don't remember.
Feels like it's been a year, but for people that may have forgotten me, I do still work on AZD. Hi guys, I'm a software engineer on the team. And yeah, I guess today I'll be talking about starter templates. So if you run AZD init, again, on the latest version, you'll see that we've added a few selections to the template selection, right? And so there's, as you can see on the screen, starter, bicep, Terraform, and minimal. So I think these templates are kind of for people that want to AZWify an existing project. Like this can be really helpful, or if you're really want to explore AZ to its full extent and you're trying to build an app from scratch, right? You can definitely take one of these and start building from there. The templates have some documentation that kind of shows you what you're expected to do with how you write IAC, but Otherwise, yeah, I think this is like for the people that are that don't necessarily want the full blown apps. Like this is a great way to kind of understand what AZD does for you from very basic setup.
Yeah, and if you like, this is a kind of our first attempt at putting together these starters to help give people a really solid foundation to work from and like understand the AZD conventions. So they're like pretty well commented. And there's like complimentary docs on our docs site, and I can throw the link up for that too while I'm here. But if you have feedback on these or there's things you'd like to see, like I know we already have one request to include things like our bicep modules, our core directory that you'd see in some of the other templates in our starters. Please do share your feedback on our GitHub. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to know what works and what could be improved on.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions about that from folks in the chat? We'll also bring way back later on if folks are still thinking about things. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers the starter templates.
Yep, I think that's all we have to say about this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let us know. Use them. Let us know what you think. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Wei. All right, let's and we'll bring you back later. We'll see you later. Okay.
Right.
Okay. See ya. Cool. What's next? Oh, it's me. Okay. So right before we GA'd AZD, we introduced these in the April release. We introduced these new feature stages for all of our features in AZD. And the reason we did this is because we wanted to communicate kind of the stability and allow for early feedback, but also make people aware of when they should and should not maybe consider using some of the support we have in business critical scenarios. And so from now on, basically from the April release onward, all features in AZD will start in alpha state. And this means that they're behind a feature flag that you have to intentionally enable in AZD using the azd config list command to see all of the alpha features, as well as azd config set to enable that specific feature. We have a kind of full explanation about how we plan on promoting these features on our docs, which is linked on the slide. That aka.ms/azd link has a full doc on like what alpha means, what beta means, what stable means. And we plan on kind of using user feedback, your feedback to promote the features through the stages and kind of stabilize on the user experience and some of the implementation details as well. What else is there to say about this? I think that's like largely it. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much the gist of it. Just wanted to make sure that folks were like aware of like some of the new stuff that we're bringing and let folks test stuff out. Those like bleeding edge folks who want to try like the new hotness in AZD early without kind of jeopardizing like the stability of the product. And so right now we have a couple different features in alpha state. Our Visual Studio support is currently behind a feature flag in Visual Studio. Working to get that to beta as well, and working on speccing that out. And then Terraform, resource group scope deployments, which Matt is going to talk about in a little bit, and our new Azure Spring App support that was announced in May, right before we GA'd. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions about that, feedback, comments, yeah, you can weigh in here or also on GitHub. I would be happy to chat about that. All righty. What else do we got? I think we're right into I led into resource group scope deployments. So we're going to bring our pal Matt on. Hey, Matt.
Hello. It's perfect. It's like we planned the whole thing out to have a consistent story that we can tell through the entire presentation. So yeah, this is some of the new work that we're doing behind a feature flag. And one of the things I like about this is, as a developer, is it makes it easier for me to get sort of this stuff out to you in the community to play around with it, even before it's 100% polished. But what we've got is in a pretty good state today. So for folks who are familiar with bicep and ARM deployments, you may be familiar with the concept that there's this thing called an ARM deployment scope. And one of the ways this manifests itself is in all of our bicep templates. We have this deployment scope equals subscription thing at the top, which is telling the ARM template, hey, this has to be deployed at a subscription level instead of in a resource group. And that's great for folks who are new to Azure and don't know what resource groups or subscriptions are, it makes it really easy for us to go create the resource group, hold all your Azure resources for you, and not have to ask the user what they want to do. And so that's the reason we sort of use subscription-based deployments for all of our getting started templates. But we've heard from users that they also want to support templates that target a resource group. And so the idea there is that you may not have permissions to do a subscription, a deployment at subscription scope. You may have some centralized IT team that creates a resource group for you and gives you permissions to create resources in there, but you can't go create resource groups yourself. And so now AZD is going to support this. The support is behind the feature flag today that Savannah was talking about. So you can run this AZD config set alpha resource group deployments on flag, and then the feature will be enabled in AZD. If you don't do this, and AZD detects that you have a bicep template that targets resource group scope, it will give you an error and say you need to go enable this this feature to do it. So there's some discovery in the tool today. Once you turn this on, if you go try to deploy a resource or a template that targets resource group scope, just like before, you're asked sort of the two general questions to select which subscription you want to use and then the location you want to use within there. And then when you're targeting a resource group, you get sort of this new question. We give you a list of the existing resource groups in that subscription, and you can pick one to deploy into, or you can use this create a new resource group gesture, in which case it will ask you for a name and then go attempt to create the resource group on your behalf, and then it will deploy all the resources into it. And that's really the only change. So you turn this flag on, and then AZD now, when it detects you're trying to use resource group scope deployments, it will do the right thing for you, and it'll prompt you for a resource group name, or let you pick an existing one. And then in this world, when you run AZD down, it will go try to delete that resource group. That's something we're still looking for feedback on. We know there's probably cases where folks are sharing the resource group, and so that might be a dangerous operation. The CLI will present a list of all the resources it's going to destroy and get your confirmation on there. So hopefully that'll give you a chance to think about if this is something really you want to do. But that's one of the issues we're sort of still hammering out, and a reason behind its behind this alpha flag. And the other thing is that AZD pipeline config today doesn't work with it. So when you go and configure your pipeline, it does not today set information in the pipeline that lets it know which resource group you want to target. We'll be adding that support soon, and that'll be one of the things we need to do before we bring the feature out of alpha and into beta. But the code is there today, and folks have been successful using it. So if you want to pick it up and play around with it, it is in the bits today, and excited to hear everybody's feedback on it.
Yeah, just all in the vein of whatever your workflow, whatever you need to do, we're trying to make AZD flexible enough that any app or any scenario can be used with the tool. So yeah, your feedback will help us move it into beta. So please give us feedback on this experience. Cool. Yeah, I think that's any questions from folks in the chat. We have a quiet group today. But yeah, all right, cool. Well, thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
See you later. All righty. It is now the moment folks have been waiting for. And I say that because I feel like AI is sort of the new hotness, if you will. It's everywhere. And we have a friend on the call today, John. Hi, John. John's going to talk to us about building OpenAI plugins.
Cool. Good. So ChatGPT plugins enable the ability for you to add your own API to ChatGPT. And we want to make it super easy to build those, both with GitHub and with Azure. An example would be Expedia API or Kayak or Shopping API, restaurant reservations. You can integrate, just like these APIs have integrated into ChatGPT, you can integrate your own APIs. And what we've done is put together a sample, which I'm going to walk through and show you how it works, on how to build with Fast API. Now, Fast API is an API technology built for Python, and I'm working on bringing this to other languages as well. But for Fast API is what we have for now. So let me just give you a quick demo on how it works, and then I'll show you how it's built. So in ChatGPT here.
Oh, you don't think you're screen sharing, John?
Cool. Let me present. Share screen.
All right. I'm going to click a button. It should bring you up.
Yeah.
All right.
So in ChatGPT, you have the option, if you're on the official list of being able to have plugins, there's a wait list which you can sign up for on their website. Once you're off that wait list and have the product, you'll see plugins here, and there's a plugin store where you can install plugins and use them. So that is what we're going to show you today, how to build those using code spaces and AZD. The one that we're building is called Contoso Product Search, and it is seeded with hiking gear. So if we say hiking boots, ChatGPT is smart enough to know that it needs to query your plugin for that. And you can see in debug mode here, you can see the request that was sent to our API, hiking boots, and the response, and then how ChatGPT displays that in list form. And you can say anything related to hiking. So hiking supplies, for example, will not only return boots, but it will return all supplies. So that's what we're going to, that's what we're going to take a look at. So here is the repo, and this link will be shared as well. It's Azure-samples OpenAI-plugin-fast API. I'm working on one right now, -C#, which will be written with minimal APIs coming soon. So check back for that soon. Now, when you're in this repo here, you're going to want to fork it to get it into your own user account because of things that you'll want to do with it later. You could just use it as is, but I recommend forking it. So I've forked it to John GIO, and you'll notice here that front and center, we have code spaces and dev containers. So if you don't know what those are, it's a definition of a dev environment that has all your dependencies installed for you. Code spaces is going to get you a development environment in the browser, and dev container is going to be local within VS Code. You can also point VS Code to a code space, which I do on a normal daily basis. But today we're going to use code spaces in the browser. So you just come up here and you click code, and you create a new code space. I already have one created. So let's take a look at what you get with that template. So first things first, when you query or when you add your plugin to ChatGPT, it's going to look for a route at .well-known ai-plugin.json, and it's going to consume that file, and it has all the metadata for your plugin. It's a Contoso product search, and then there's a URL to the OpenAPI YAML, and there's a logo. So what we did is said, well, this host needs to be an absolute, this setting needs to be an absolute URI. So we put host in there, and then we'll replace it in the router, which I'll show you in a sec. So that here in main.py is our main API. It's just a very, very simple product search. There's just a get on /products and a query, very simple, just searches an in-memory store of products, which is loaded from this data file. Very contrived, but you can imagine replacing that with an actual database and so on. What you get is part of this template is the router for all of the OpenAI paths that it's going to need in order to be a plugin. It expects this OpenAPI YAML, expects a logo and the AI plugin.json file. What we do in the router is find the host and the protocol and replace those values inside of the well-known files here. So if you notice here, we have host, we do that replacement for you. So it'll work locally, it'll work in code spaces, and it'll work in app services, functions, container apps, and pretty much any development environment, as well as production, this router will work in. So that's what you get for free. Now, this particular example is AZDevify because it has an Azure YAML file. And in this case, the source code is in the root. So we just say project for the API. The project here is in the root. The host is going to be a container app, and the language is Python. That simply just knows to look for the application. Azd will know to look for that main.py file here and deploy it to the Azure Container App. It looks, Azd looks at the location of your service for a Docker file and uses that when it provisions to Azure Container Apps. And it also, the template also includes an infra folder. Inside of this infra folder is all the bicep that you need to get this fully up and running. You have the container apps, you have the API container app, you have monitoring, and all the outputs that you're going to need, and api.bicep, which defines your container app. So how it knows where to deploy, you'll notice here, Azure.yaml, we have the service name is API. Inside of your API bicep, the service name is API, and we tag it with azd service name. So when you say azd deploy, it's going to look at the service name and find that tag and then deploy the code to that. So let's do this. Do we have any questions? No.
No questions yet.
Cool.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'm going to hit F5 to run this. Now this is in a code space in a browser, and we have the VS Code launch settings. So it just knows how to launch this. So you should just be able to open up the code space, hit F5, and you have the plugin running. Now, for security purposes, the port that it is running on is private. So you need to right-click port visibility, public, for the port 8000. That way, ChatGPT can access your API. So if you click on and open up that fast API in your browser, and it'll say not found, but if you go to /docs, that's going to give you the fast API default OpenAPI YAML, browser, the Swagger UI for that. So that just shows you your product's API with the query. Now you'll notice that right there is my code space URL. So simply copy that into a new chat, plugins store. And I'm going to remove the existing, and down here in the right, it says develop your own plugin. Click that. And I pasted in the code space URI to the port that we just exposed. Go through a bunch of prompts, install, continue, and finally you have it working. Now I'm just going to say hiking boots, and then I'm going to go back to here, and you should be able to see in the terminal. Yeah, so that's OpenAPI, and then hiking boots. So you can see that it's actually calling into the code space there. Go back to here, and you'll see that it's working. So that's, to me, that's really cool because you have the entire development experience running in a browser. You very simple, click open a code space, hit F5 running, and now you have a fully functioning OpenAI plugin. Now the next step is to get this to Azure, and we do that with azd up. So just from the root, so azd is already installed in your code space. In the dev container, you'll see all of the dependencies are installed. So if you just come to the terminal and run azd up, It's going to provision all the resources that you need. It's going to package it, which means create an image for your API, and then is going to provision all your resources and deploy that container to the Azure Container Apps and spit out a URI to use. So if you hit that URI, so that is this red plant in the URL. Let's find that red plant right there. That is that fully running in Azure. Don't fail me. Okay, fully running in Azure. Here, new chat, plugins, remove, develop your own plugin, paste in Azure Container Apps URI.
I don't know if it's just me, but your browser window is really, really freaking out, John.
I see that on StreamYard, but I don't see it on mine. So
very strange. But like, John, what if I didn't care about hiking boots, right? Like, I could just take this now and make my own API for whatever I wanted.
Yeah, it's really meant as a starting point for sure. So let me just show. So just make sure that that's working. Yeah, so that's hitting the production version of that on Azure. Yeah, so really the intention of this is just a starting point for people to build their own plugins, and it's like the scaffolding around your plugin. So you would re-implement main.py to whatever whatever API you want to use. So if it's not products, if it's a to-do app, if it's your own whatever your API is, you just implement it here as fast API or whatever language you want to use. And yeah, so that's the demo. Any questions on that?
We have a quiet audience today, but I think, as with any Azure developer CLI compatible code base, right? You didn't have to think about, as an end user, have to think about all of the infrastructure to get it up and running on Azure. You took it from your local prototype to Azure with like one gesture and just piggyback off of all of those infrastructure resources.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty cool. And yeah, if folks missed the keynote at Build, this is the app that was shown there. So definitely check it out if you're interested in building stuff with ChatGPT, plugins, all that good stuff.
And also let us know if you build stuff for ChatGPT with this. I think we'd all be curious to see what people end up doing with this on their own.
Yeah, even just as a creative exercise, I'm interested in what people are end up building. Very cool. Well, thanks, John. That was awesome.
No problem. Yep. Thanks.
All right. Catch you later. Alrighty. So this is a new segment, I think, to this stream that we haven't talked before. But what's coming? We GA'd AZD, and I think sometimes folks think, oh, GA means the product is done. No, the journey is never done, folks. This is art. We're building art here, so we have many things to do still. I just wanted to talk through a couple high-level items that are coming that we're working on over the next couple months. Some of these are pretty large features that are non-trivial, so it's going to take us some trial and error here, but the first one I want to talk about is this new bring your own repo and generate IAC infrastructure as code feature. Today you have to find a template, right, that maps to your local application stack so that you can piggyback off of infrastructure as code assets and then update that template to make sense for your application and then run AZD up. Well, we're working on a feature that would allow you to pass in any repository to AZD, have us infer the local application stack, and generate infrastructure as code for you, making an opinionated decision about what we think might work for your application. And so this is a feature that's kind of well suited to someone who maybe doesn't care what infrastructure they're using on Azure, just wants to get from A to B as quickly as possible. We're exploring a couple different avenues there, of course, in the current state of affairs in tech, investigating the AI angle and non-AI angle and figuring out which one will work best for this particular use case. But I'm really excited about this feature because I think it's making it even easier for everyone to get from local dev environment to Azure. That's like one big feature we're working on. Wei is actually working on that feature on the call. We also are working on a feature that helps people get onto Azure easier from a different perspective. So if you're a developer that knows what services you want to use on Azure, and you have a good sense of, I want to use app service, or I want to use container apps and a key vault, and I need a Postgre database, and you just want to like walk through a wizard and select those services, we're working on a feature that would let you kind of select those things and generate a starting point for infrastructure as code that you could use for kind of rapid prototyping. And that's that application scaffolding wizard. So that's also a pretty neat feature that we're working on over the next couple of months. We've also been talking about, I think there was a blog post on the Azure deployment environment side, supporting Azure deployment environments, which is kind of a more a scenario where you might be a developer in an enterprise that doesn't have governance over your resources, and maybe that's managed by someone else in your organization. We're working on integrating ADE and AZD together and making it so that AZD can interact with ADE resources. We are also working on refreshing the Awesome AZD website. We have some amazing new designs coming that our designers are working on, and I'm super, super excited about this. It'll make it way easier for everyone to find templates for different languages, different tech stacks, different Azure architecture, infrastructure, as well as different scenarios. So stay tuned for that. The designs are actually on the Awesome AZD website in that issue that's linked. So if you're interested, definitely take a look and see what's coming. Hopefully we'll be able to share that one out in a couple community calls. We're also working on today. So today we don't really have the ability, right, when you run AZD provision, to know kind of what exists upstream. And so we're working on a feature that would allow us to understand the difference between what's in your local infrastructure as code and what's actually existing on Azure. So that would help us during the provisioning process. So that'll help speed up provisioning, and also what else do we got on here? Helping folks build templates. So today we don't really have a gesture to help you validate your infrastructure configuration. We have an issue to potentially surface a command called azd validate, which would help kind of folks writing and iterating on their project, and also help us kind of like review some of the stuff coming into the template gallery more easily, so everyone kind of had more visibility into that process. So if you have thoughts around that, would love to kind of hear them on that GitHub issue. And then finally, we have some features that we're working on in VS Code to help you update the paths in your Azure YAML. So today, like, if you start it with a template, it might have a path to a particular, source src directory /web or API. And then if you go and you rip out that source code, well, now you have to figure out the right paths for AZD to know which resources correspond with which service in your app. Paths are hard. As it turns out, people really struggle with figuring out the right paths, which for some maybe seems like super obvious, but it's actually not. And there's a lot of people that really struggle with it. So we want to make that easier in the editor. So there'll be some quick fixes and diagnostics and stuff that will be surfacing there. And then finally, we're working on a command called soft called azd show, which would allow you to see kind of all of the deployed endpoints, all your environment stuff in editor. So you just could like have a quick gesture to take a look at all of that. So that was like a long ramble, but as you can imagine, lots of big things coming. This is just kind of a smattering of stuff that we have planned for the next couple months. If you are interested in the full roster of things that we are working on, big or small, they are on our GitHub repo in this particular milestone. It's labeled Gallium or current semester. And you can take a look at everything that we have planned over the next couple months. Would love to hear from you on any and all of those items, or on the discussion boards. That your feedback will help us shape the roadmap for the next couple semesters, as well as next year. So really looking forward to hearing from all of you. All right. Again, super quiet chat today. No questions. Making our lives easy today, Grace. Cool. I'm gonna hide this banner, and I'm going to move to the next slide. All right, Grace.
Yeah, so we just wanted to thank our community contributors. I think these are our top contributors. like ahead of our before our GA. So Pamela Fox, Hadwa Gaber, sorry if I'm pronouncing anyone's names wrong, Hatan Shabakshi, Christian Lechner. I know he's normally in community calls. I don't know if he's here today, but Anthony Shaw, Aaron Powell, Gwyneth Pena Sequenza, and then Nitya Narasimhan. Sorry, I'm so bad at pronouncing last names. But thank you to all of these folks and everyone else who's contributed, and we hope you continue as the AZD continues in its journey. You guys are all a really important part of our product, and you're the reason why we make it.
Yeah, and these folks have contributed sort of across the AZD ecosystem, so not just in the core AZD binary, which is written in Go, but there have been contributions to like our VS Code extension, which is written in TypeScript, or template contributions, or Awesome AZD. Nitya was the one who initially prototyped the Awesome AZD website. So there's like lots of different ways that you can contribute here. Documentation. So although we're written in Go, and I know that sometimes Go for folks that aren't writing Go or a particular language, like that can be a bit daunting, but I just want to remind folks there's many ways to contribute beyond just contributing to the AZD core binary. So if you're interested in contributing and you don't know where to start, ping me on the discussion boards on GitHub or on Twitter. I will be happy to find a place for you to help contribute to AZD. As Grace mentioned, open source contributions are so valuable to AZD, both in shaping the product and also just like building up a community around the tool. So thank you to all these folks, really. Cool.
Yeah, and of course, as always, just calling for feedback and also signing up for user research opportunities. I think we're going to start doing more of this in like this coming semester and the semesters that follow. So if you're interested, like please sign up. I love user research. I think it's like a really interesting thing to even just be a part of as a participant. And like I just said, like our users are the reason why we make this product, and your feedback is like the most valuable thing that we can gather. So please sign up if you're at all interested.
Yeah, and I guess I'll drop that, like we are planning on doing some user research around that bring your own repo, generate infrastructure as code scenario. So if you're interested in that and want to help shape the product, especially around a cool feature like that, please sign up.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, is that the end? I think that might be the end. That's the end of the deck. We made it. 40 minutes. 40 minutes on the dot. I'm gonna bring some friends back who are still here, and we can all just chat for a sec and see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, we can also end early. Yeah, it's a nice Thursday here. It's like kind of nice, kind of cold here in Seattle area today.
Cold. I think it's like going to be 70 today.
Okay, but 3 weeks ago, it was like in the 80s, or close to 30 in my Canadian units, and that just felt like tropical for me.
Yeah.
Maybe even too hot, to be honest.
80's too hot for me.
You have air conditioning?
I have a little window unit, but it doesn't really fit in the window, so it also lets some heat in at the same time.
For folks not in Seattle, it's pretty common to not have AC in apartments or houses, because it used to not get very hot here in the summer. So yeah, I don't know. Are there any questions? I don't know, like folks on the chat. Matt, is there anything you want to like talk about that was not in the community call, or anything that you're pretty excited about, or whatever.
No, it's exciting. I mean, it's been exciting just since GA to see people showing up on GitHub and asking questions. I think we've had some good feedback in the discussions area, and I know I've answered some questions of folks that why do we do these strange things, and so it's an artifact of like how the product evolved in time, and I personally love answering those questions. So if you see something weird, do feel free to show up and chat. And I think just the interactions we've had so far with folks in the community have been very, very helpful in understanding, where is the use and where do we need to invest in. So love hearing from folks.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really excited about all the upcoming features. I think they all add, a lot to the product in very different ways. And I feel like we've only, scratched the surface, right? I think AZD has a pretty long journey to go, as long as users still find it useful, right? I think there's, in terms of like how can we make Azure development easier, there's tons of work that we can do.
Yeah, I feel like we've sort of like the core like UX flow of using AZD, I think, is pretty like stable today. But I think there's so much opportunity for us to like continue to make it easier for people, especially like with, and I'm really excited also about kind of all of the client integration work, like all of the VS Code extension work we have planned, and just like trying to meet people in their preferred development environment. That's also very exciting to me. So yeah, I mean, the road is long, we got lots of stuff ahead of us, and like all the now that we're in a kind of more stable spot at post GA, there's lots of teams reaching out to us for integration work, and that's also really exciting to see other teams start to want to adopt AZD as well. So not just end users, but also seeing AZD incorporated into other places too. Cool. I don't know. Is there anything else folks want to talk about? Otherwise, I think we're done here, and we can catch people in a month's time or so. All right. I think we've had a quiet chat today. People got to ramp back up after GA.
It's summertime.
Yeah. Well, next month, y'all, I expect questions. I'm kidding. Okay. Cool. We're gonna wrap here. We're at about 45 minutes. We will be back around the 20th of July. Still locking down that time and date. I will post on our GitHub when I have the date confirmed on a discussion, and I'll also post it on Twitter. But if you have questions, comments, thoughts, feelings about AZD in the meantime, please find us on GitHub. We would love to hear from you. Alrighty, I think that's it. All right, I will catch you all later. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, folks. Happy coding. Bye.
Bye.